So the grooming gangs never stopped because, I mean, why would they? Like, we were all told they were still going on, and yes, they are still going on as we speak. And the only silver lining to this whole story is going to be there have been more convictions. So at least people are being charged and convicted. So things are going through rather than just being completely ignored as in the past. But in case someone doesn't know or they're just joining us, I want to show this is the thing we're going to be focusing on today, the Halifax child sex abuse ring. This is part of the series of grooming gangs which have been found up and down the country in the same pattern of abuse in which a gang of people essentially use children as prostitutes or pass them around their friends and rape them, after friending them as boyfriends, giving them, alcohol or kebabs and whatnot. And, disproportionately, one group in Britain takes part in this. But let's go through it. So, they say here the Halifax child sex abuse ring was a group of men who committed serious sexual offences to underage girls in English towns in Halifax and the city of Bradford, West Yorkshire. It was the largest child sexual exploitation investigation in the United Kingdom. In 2016, the perpetrators were found guilty of rape and other crimes, and at separate trials at Leeds Crown Court. In total, as many than 100 men have been involved in the child abuse. 100 men, just in this town, in this investigation. And then they list in here, because this is a Wikipedia article, I'm just reading the summation here, and I love how this has been editorialized. So they say here that in 2017, Quilliam released a report entitled Group-Based Child Sex Exploitation, Dissecting Grooming Gangs, which concluded that 84% of offenders were of South Asian heritage. And this information was, as they said in their report, limited because they did not have access to all of the government's data. They had to look at just what was publicly available in the convictions, and what they found was that. And then they say here that there was research that contraries this opinion. The review was criticised for its poor methodology by Ella Cockbain and Wakas Tufal. In a paper they titled Failing Victims, Fueling Hate, Challenges and the Harms of Muslim Grooming Gangs Narrative, which was published in January 2020. And I've seen left-wingers who love to throw up this and other research by Ella Cockbain because she's an academic, so she's in a position to make research and publish it. And I just wanted to, if we can get it up, just so people can go and read it in their own times, it's garbage. Like, it's real garbage. If you go through it, you can see that it's clearly motivated by political sentiments, not through finding the facts. It also seems to deny that there's any aspect to what's going on the religious or racial grounds, and entirely focuses on the fact that this is just child sexual exploitation and try to universalize it. I mean, the Jeremy Corbyn approach of being like, I'm against all bombing. Yeah, but do you condemn the IRA bombing? I'm against all bombing. Is there a problem with, race and religion involved in this? It's just child sexual abuse. No, there are specific things going on. But anyway, so in there she also just engages in such denialism as calling people from Sarah Champion to Jack Straw a liar. So, I mean, what are you expecting? And in case you're not convinced and you think I'm just being salty or something, you just go to her Twitter account, because I love how leftists just live their activism on Twitter. She's a leftist activist. What is it? GB News wants to set up themselves and tell news that's not left-wing. And in response, she helps Stop Funding Hate Here, a leftist organisation, to try and get rid of their funding, because how dare they blaspheme? So, not just me. So they continue in here. In December of that year, a further report by the Home Office was released that showed the majority of CSE gangs were in fact composed of white men. A complete misrepresentation. If you go to the report, we've covered this previously. The strengths in there is most of the same studies show that the majority of offenders are white. Majority of offenders, not the overwhelming majority or even proportionate, because again, Britain is like 80, 90% white or whatever it is. And this is also with them caveating, as you go through it, that they have no confidence in their data. And all the studies that they do list actually have Asians massively overrepresented from the 6 or so % that they make up in Britain.
So did this actually really focus on the groups then? Because I imagine if they looked at the data nationwide and individual cases, then maybe they could come to that conclusion. But in the group-based thing, I would definitely imagine that there would be certain groups that would be overrepresented there. That I don't understand how they could ever come to that conclusion.
So in the report, their perspective on this is just they've got terrible data. A lot of the files are missing characteristics of what the race or ethnicity of the perpetrators are, and a bunch of them just are very small, and all the rest of it. You can read the thing in your own time, but it's essentially they say we don't even know, but we say that the majority of offenders are white, and it's like, okay, sure, but Asians make up 6% of the population. If they make up 30% of the convicted, as one of the studies lists, that's a massive overrepresentation. That's not small. I mean, 6% of the population, 30% of the child rapes. That's not tiny at all. So they continue writing in The Guardian. Cockbain and Tufil also wrote a report that the 2-year study by the Home Office was a very clear grounds that there was no grounds for asserting that Muslim or Pakistani heritage men are disproportionately engaged in such crimes. Citing our research, it confirms the unreliability of the Quilliam claim. What we're going to do is we're just going to go through the cases. You tell me whether or not this is the case, or whether or not these people, their research, because their research does it line up with what's happening on the ground, essentially. That's the question we're going to look at. So if we go back, I mean, this is the first case that made it big. So this is, Yorkshire Times reporting on the chances to protect vulnerable girl from evil sex gang Halifax was missed. This was missed after an inquiry into what went wrong. So this youngster, who's known as Janet in the report, fake name, was drugged and raped by a gang from the ages of 12 to 15. A probe into the vulnerable girl and how she was raped and abused by more than 100 men found chances to stop the gang, but they were missed by the social services and the police. I mean, we've known this story for a long time. And eventually they ended up jailing the people involved. So if we go to the next link here, you can see this is 2016. These are the guys who were jailed. It was 25 people who were charged, and then they went through the trial, and they ended up jailing, I would think it was 15 for sexual crimes, and the other 2 for, I think it was providing drugs, because they were drugging her. I mean, okay, you can see where Quilliam were getting their suspicions from, and if you can scroll down to the names, just so we can look at the names. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, no worries, carry on. It's fine.
So if you can keep going, the names are near the bottom, because of course they are. The defendants, I mean, Hada Ali, Khalid Zaman, Mohammed Razman, Haris Ahmed, Tamir Mahood, Takir Butt, Amma Ali Ditta, Azad Subhani, Talid Sadiq, Sadiqa Malik, Muhammad Ali Ahmed, Aftar Hussain, Mansour Akhtar, Sikinder Ikat, Fazl Mahmood, Rakwan Ghaffar.
All traditional British names there.
Yeah, so they launched appeals because, I mean, they believe they didn't do nothing, and of course the appeals failed. So we go to the next link. This is just, no, there should be one of them failing, but don't worry about it. They did their appeals. Hada Ali, Kazid Zaman, Mohammed Razman, Tahir Mahmood, and Takia Butt. All of them failed because they are guilty. They are just child rapists, so get stuffed. Like they all went to prison, which is nice, but it's like this is the problem as has been demonstrated, which is there were multiple instances to help, they didn't, and as a result, the justice was delayed years and people suffered. So if you go to the next one as well, this is the same year. 20 more men were arrested in the same area for being involved in this kind of grooming, and then in 2019, 9 of them were convicted. So if we can go to there, you can look at these guys again. Bradford grooming, 9 jailed for abusing girls. The girls were age 14 when they first met these men, and they began by using drink, drugs, and violence to groom and sexually exploit them. Look at the names: Bashar Khalid, Saeed Akhtar. Stop, it's there. Nahir Rahman. It's
Mohammed the same
Usman.
Story again, isn't it? Yeah.
Kieran Harris. There we are. There's an English name. Azia Hussain, probably not, but there you go. That's something. And yeah, and it's obvious why Quilliam, looking at the public data, would come to that conclusion. But don't worry, Ella Cockbane's got her own research. So the same year, there was more of this. So if you go to this one, this is a police officer, Ahmed Jitta, who was charged in another group of people, 16 men who were charged with being involved in sexual crimes against children aged between 13 and 16 in exactly the same area. He's a police officer. He was a police officer, and he was charged with sexual touching. So he was molesting a girl, by the sounds of it.
How the hell did they not figure out that, police officer, you'd think background checks, and I imagine his position as well probably allowed him to get away with it longer than it would a normal person.
I mean, that's how deep the problem is. If the
if even the
individual
police
officers are in there. So they're saying here 16 men have been charged with sex offences against 13 and 16-year-olds. West Yorkshire Police Ajit Ditta, also known as Abjib Hussain, was charged with sexual touching. He and 15 other men are charged with offences against 3 girls in the Halifax area, dated from 2006 to 2009. I mean, again, it's different periods. If we can scroll down, I think they have the names there as well. So Vakid Abbas, Nadim Aled, Sajid Aled, Vasim Adlet, Ahmed Jitta, Christopher Eastwood, there we go, Metlid Islam, Mohammed Rizwan, Ishtik Lafter, Asid Mahmoud, Afa Mir, Yunus Mohammed, Nadim Nasir, Shakid Nawaz, Shasad Nazir, Sohail Zafar. Yeah. So let's go to the videos, because this cop, he's actually a bit of no, he's not a nobody. He's not some desk jockey. in which he's just some guy who works in the police force. This was the poster boy for diversity and inclusion within this area, it seems. He would go to mosques and try and recruit more Muslim men into the police force for the sake of diversity and inclusion. And this was, so much of a success that this news made it all the way to Pakistan. Let's play.
Officer. And on top of that, they give me a fast car to drive, they give me a gun, and a uniform. So that's another reason why I want to be a police officer. But then now in 2017, there's a few more black minority ethnics who have joined. But again, there's not enough. Police force joined करने से पहले अमजद दत्ता मामूली नौकरी करते थे.
Wait, big deal. Poster boy. Poster boy for modern Britain diversity and inclusion. But there's also some other sick stuff. They used to send him to schools, and in the schools he would try and recruit, community cohesion or whatever, and what police should do. This is evidence of it. He went to schools and interacted with kids. Play. And he's just sick. I mean, that's the level of integration within the society there. He's not a nobody at all. He was the poster boy for diversity and inclusion within the force, and then, going out with community cohesion there. And in case you're wondering, the trial of him and the other sick, I can't swear, but if you could scroll up as well, up there, is still ongoing. So, it had to be Eid, didn't it? Like, look at the top there. Scroll back up. I want to show the Yorkshire thing. Yorkshire Live, happy Eid. Yeah.
What a juxtaposition there.
Yeah, great timing. Anyway, so trial of police officer and 15 others accused of child sexual abuse has been delayed by a year, so that'll be this year that they get tried, and we'll see whether or not they're guilty, I guess. But the reason that this is a story, and I wanted to go over all this, is because yesterday more people were charged. 29 men. 29 men were charged with the same thing, child sexual exploitation. Men. Just men. Yeah. The offences are said to have taken place in Bradford and Kildare between 2003 and 2010, where the victims were aged between 13 and 20 now, because they've grown up. And again, those charged: Azad Ali, Amjad Azid, Mohammed Jangir, Mohammed Asif, Haris Ahmed Butt, Takir Butt, Musamid Khan, Mohammed Hamza, Mohsin Mir, Javid Mir, Harun Sadiq, Hazza Ibkel, Sarif Vrabharaz, Maj Adalet, Sajid Adlet, Nazim Hussein, Nadim Sadiq, Sakbuk Hussein, Sadkat Ali, Zabirid Mohammed, Imran Raka Yassin, Zukhtar Ali, Malik Adib Kudir, Kamran Amin, Mohammed Atkaz. I'm going to give up. I mean, look at it. Look at it. And in this one, this isn't just sexual exploitation or providing drugs. You can see that. 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of rape, 5 counts of rape, 2 counts of rape. These are all rapists they've been charged with.
Whole 30 people as well. So
all 29 of them, 1 girl.
It's awful.
I mean, you couldn't think of
awful.
anything worse, could you?
No. I don't understand how this can carry on going on under people's noses, because something of this scale, it's not going to be unnoticed. There's got to be more people that are involved in this beyond these 29 people, right? It's appalling.
I mean, as you've seen, we've got the other 9 who were convicted in 2019. You've got 16, 17 who were convicted in 2016, plus the lots of people who got off. The endless number of people who are suspected, but they couldn't provide enough evidence to charge them, because that's the thing as well. It's the Crown Prosecution Service who has to find the evidence to then charge them. And in this case, I spoke to someone who is a victim of grooming gangs, and she said at least it's a good sign here that we can see that they're being charged with rape, the lot of these people, because then they can say we've got the evidence to get these people. That's what the Crown Prosecution Service will be displaying with the fact that they've charged them all there. So, that's good. That's the only silver lining for this. That at least these people are being charged. There's 29 guys are being charged there. And, a lot of white names. Sure, the SMP will be like, white. Zamid Ali, white. Yeah, no, not white. Let's not mess around. So you go to Halifax. This is the area in which gets linked, because, again, Halifax sex scandal. If you can scroll down on the right side, just so we can see the demographics of the area. This is the demographics from 2010, if you keep going. And you can see ethnic group and religion there. So ethnic group, Asian, makes up about 16%. And same with religion there, being about 16%. 16% of the local population. What percentage of the local child abusers? Pretty high. Like, it's a community problem. There's no soft way to put this whatsoever. And I wanted to tie this back in with the so Ella Hill, who has written for us on lotuseaters.com, who wrote an open letter to the UK government on our website, and thank you for sending this in. She was the one I confirmed with about the fact that it's at least good news that they're being charged. And in here, you should go and read it in your own time if you haven't, but I'm going to read some bits of it here because she raised some great points. So she says, I'm a grooming gang survivor and a Christian. I represent people who have experienced anti-white hate crime and anti-lack of belief hate crime, or a combination of the both. My reason for writing is to again ask that the Home Office and the government act to ensure that all ministers of the Crown Public Authorities Act to carry out their public sector equality duty under the Equality Act of 2010, Section 149. To, quote, have due regard for the need to achieve the objective and eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimization, end quote, of grooming gang victims on the ground of race and religion. Because, I mean, this is the thing that she brings up that I don't ever see discussed around this issue, at least not enough, which is that these guys, whenever you read the court documents and whenever you need the accounts, I mean, she went on Panorama and spoke about some of the stuff that happened to her. They would call her, white S. They would call her effing Gori, which was like the Pakistani word for white. And it's obviously racial and religious abuse. I mean, effing kafir, non-believer, as they abuse you. So the idea that this isn't a hate crime, nonsense. In which case, then they should be charged, as any white person would if they engaged in hate crimes in this country, with hate crimes. Their sentences shouldn't just be the standard, here's a rape. No, throw on the hate crime thing. Give them an extra few years or whatever it is that the system does if you are charged with that. And the fact that it's anti-white, anti-Western, so on and so forth, I mean, that is exactly true. And it's something that isn't thought about a lot. So she also, I don't know if we can get the first image up, which is just, like, if you want to apply intersectional theory to it as well, leftists, who are denying that any of this is going on, like, this is something she sent me, which is just that grooming gang crime is racially and religious aggravated rape. It is a type of intersectional identity-based violence, attacking your race, religion, or lack of religion, and sexual identity. Under the Equality Act, that is the standard. Effing kafir, effing non-believer. Okay, well, lack of religion is a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. Therefore, that's a hate crime. White S, that's a hate crime, that's racially motivated. And to argue, as I've seen so many denialists try and argue, that there is no racial aspect to any of this, there is no religious aspect or lack of religious aspect to this, nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And the kind of people who argue that thing should be ashamed of themselves. And it's another day in which you just get another list of guys. I mean, not many Mr. Smiths among them. I just can't get over it. It just never ends. Just never ends. But I wanted to mention it because I didn't want it to just go under the radar, because it's not right.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.